Should we start the podcast?
Yeah, let's start.
Yes, let's begin.
You're listening to the Frightening Waiters Wait, hold on. That's smudged. Spilled my tea on it earlier. I think it might say Failing Writers. Yeah, I'll go with that. You're listening to the Failing Writers podcast. Or whatever.
We've already established off mic that we're all well, haven't we?
We probably don't need to run through that again. Yeah.
So let's get straight in there.
We've all told each other what we had for lunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again,
let's not go through
It
that
doesn't need to be
again.
in the podcast, does it?
People don't care about that. So we should fulfill a promise that we made.
Shouldn't we? I mean, or we could just skip over it and not bother, couldn't we?
We could skip over that.
It.
No, but I do think that the first question we should ask is, what have you written this week?
Well, you two crack on for a bit. I'll pop back in. 5 minutes, and then we can.
All right, yeah. John, what have you written this week?
Oh, what haven't I written?
Let me rephrase that. John, have you written this week?
Do you know?
Let me rephrase that. John, do you remember what writing is?
Come on, let's start with the basics. Okay, so I haven't actually sat at my laptop and written anything, but I've got some very exciting news.
Have you?
Do you remember me talking about me and Katie's little pipe dream about touring
the
show?
Edinburgh show?
A little two-handed show.
Yeah.
Maybe taking it to Edinburgh
Yeah.
before we hit our 50. Well, we've started working on it.
Oh,
I think we've had what might be even quite a nice idea.
Excellent.
We've started mulling it over on dog walks
yeah.
and jotting stuff down in a little notebook. That kind of writing. And researching.
Old-fashioned
Started researching.
writing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's had a very nice effect. I think it's actually, it's revitalising our marriage.
Yeah.
It's quite. You've cast quite a romantic image there, John. Of you and your wife just strolling through the fields with the dog,
It's
talking and writing notes.
It genuinely has been lovely working on a little mutual project.
I mean, what's probably happened? We're having this romantic image of it. It's probably John with a notepad, Katie with a bag picking up dog poo, and John go, have you written that? I'm writing that down. What? Have you written it down? I haven't written it down. Busy picking up poo.
Do you know what the actual reality was? It was quite sweet, really. But I noticed Katie looking very slightly narked the other day after I'd spent ages working on podcast stuff. And she didn't say anything.
She didn't have to.
No, she didn't have to.
Yes.
But you know the look that I'm talking about. And when I asked her if she was okay, she admitted that she was a little bit envious that I had a creative project to sink my teeth into, and that I was clearly, enjoying it. And she didn't have anything like that. And she was like, "I'm creatively dying inside.
Goodness,
I need to do something."
Yeah.
So it sort of all stemmed from that, and we.
Cool story. So you've not done any writing, is what you're saying.
I know I think we've got a good idea. So yeah, we have.
That is
we started,
that's great.
we started messing around.
It's a
with
tragic
it, so,
opening, that isn't it?
It's
Brilliant.
It is.
Oh, that is good.
But that's all I can say at the moment. But I'm gonna. We have a task lined up in future that we've discussed already, that we've previously recorded, and I think I'm going to use that for that task. If you guys know what I'm talking about, the listeners have no idea, but you guys do.
I don't. I'm
haven't
not sure
got
I
a
do
clue.
know
I feel quite
what to be honest. Yeah.
What have we got coming up?
The
I
log
don't know.
line. I've given it away now,
Oh.
but
Oh yeah.
The discussion after Beth's interview.
Right.
But that's one for the future, listeners.
That's
One for
brilliant.
the
That
future.
is literally one for the
Listeners,
future.
in 3 or 4 weeks' time, you're going to be like,
makes sense.
cool.
So that's mine. What
Well
about?
done, John. I like
Oh,
that.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
new
exciting.
ideas. That is exciting, isn't it?
And is the before we're 50 deadline? Is that still? Is that there? Is that?
That's still there. I mean, I think we could do it. It
Yeah.
helps that we've actually started on it.
How far along
So-
the journey do you have to be by the time you're 50? Like, have started writing, finished writing, got your Edinburgh previews?
You've got to be there
Right.
performing it.
Right,
That's the
wow.
plan.
And tickets will be available via our Twitter stream at Failing Writers
Yep.
for the performance.
They probably will be,
yeah.
to be fair,
Probably.
but not just yet.
but probably.
Can we take advance bookings now or anything? Or we probably is it a little bit too soon for that?
Yeah.
I think availability's fairly good still.
I think they're
Is
quite
it still
cheap
all
as
right?
well,
Yeah,
aren't
all
they?
right.
So,
Be all right.
yeah.
Hey, stay
Just
on.
saying.
This could be a massive hit show, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, by the time this hits Edinburgh, sell out. Yeah,
Yep.
we can charge what we want for
That
tickets.
sounds-
What about you, Dave?
Well, I have actually been doing some writing. I think I might be getting near the end of the Spooky War book.
Oh.
So I'm past 50,000 words. I think there's about 3 or 4 chapters
Wow.
left. The ghosts have finally arrived. People are dying
Brilliant.
all over the shop. So yeah, it's all getting exciting. I think.
The ghosts are dying.
Not again,
No.
say the ghosts.
yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
Poor
his
sods.
soul seems so
That's
familiar.
so cruel.
Yeah, so it's this like the really sort of exciting part of the book is happening.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so that's been quite good. I feel like I'm finally getting somewhere.
And is the conclusion of the book
yeah.
set in your mind in terms of the idea for it, or are you kind of?
Yes, yeah. So the end is has been sort of set for quite a while. It's just
Right, so you know where you get into.
Yeah, so it's trying.
Is
to
it
get
your
there.
dad's original end?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I've just it's the original ending, but with an extra character thrown in for
Right.
good measure.
Right.
So I've got
Nice.
to try and shoehorn this character into the existing bit, but
Seamlessly.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
No one will ever know.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so like two of the main characters, I've killed them in the last week, which felt quite satisfying. And now the ghosts have come back to avenge them. So yeah, it's actually feeling pretty good. I'm trying to sort of take on a bit of advice of not to rush the end. I think it's quite easy when you get near the end of something and it feels quite
Yeah,
exciting
yeah.
to just sort of
Try and tie it all
splurge
up
through
quick.
the last
Yeah,
bit.
kinda.
And yeah. I'm trying to sort of hold it off, keep teasing
Bit of
it
suspense.
for a while.
And
Yeah.
how much time a day are you spending on it, Birdie?
Oh.
And how have you got the time? That's the
No,
other
I
question.
don't know.
How have you had the time?
It's literally been forcing myself to fit it in wherever possible. We've had so many things, haven't we, talking about just getting through it, getting it done. So I've tried to put everything that we've learnt and talked about over the last few weeks into practice, and just any spare bit of time. I know, that's mad, isn't it? But any spare bit of time, just do something and not worry about it too much. Just get stuff down there.
Especially that 10 minutes before you have to go and do something.
Exactly.
Really
Yeah,
utilising
those are that's the key moments of the day. So yeah, that's it feels quite exciting. I'm looking forward to finishing it, and then I can start something else and not finish that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What is your next project, Dave? Is it going to be finishing the sitcom The Chemists, or have you got something else in
Well,
mind?
no, I've got something else in mind. That I had quite an exciting idea about.
Ooh. What, recently? Or
It was a little while ago now, and I got really excited about it. And then I thought, I need to finish these other things first. And that excitement has waned a bit. But I do think it's quite.
Can you tell us anything about the idea, or is it?
Yeah.
Is it top secret?
No, it's not secret. It's so to outline it. We've talked before about the fact that I've written loads of sketches over the years and never really done anything with them. For a long time, I've wanted to do a sort of narrative sketch show. Now, I think the best example of that is The League of Gentlemen, which is basically a sketch show, but it's all tied together with this same sort of thread. And they did it so well that...
God, that was it. The second series where they did it. Like, it was just ridiculously well done.
So the third series was where they had each episode was like focused on one thing, and then
Was
all
that,
tied
sorry,
into
yes,
this.
third series.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I remember coming out of the back of that and just thinking,
That's so clever, wasn't it?
just the writing in
Yeah.
that,
And I don't think anyone else has ever done anything that good in terms of like stringing essentially a sketch show together with that narrative thingy. And I heard a show called The Sync on BBC Sounds recently, which was really, really good. And that was kind of a narrative sketch show as well. And it sort of got me thinking about doing that. So I thought of an idea of how how to write a sort of narrative story sort of laced with sketches. Then I had another idea about how to sort of self-produce that and try to get it into a load of radio stations. So there's this thing called the Audio Content Fund, I think it is. And it's a load of money that's been set aside to help produce audio content for radio stations. And it's available for sort of independent producers. But you have to have an agreement with a radio station or a group of radio stations that they will broadcast it once it's made. And then you can apply for funding to get it made, to get it out there. And I had this idea. We don't have to necessarily put this in the show, but I had this idea of like going to radio stations with the idea of them running a competition. So I would write this sort of the narrative story, but I would need a lot of sketches to fill it up. So we could do a competition on air for people to send in their sketches, and the sort of the winners, the best ones, would end up in the show, would be sort of tied into this narrative, and then it would be broadcast on that radio station. So I thought that was a good way of like fulfilling the criteria of the Audio Content Fund's brief to sort of encourage new writers and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. But you'd have the very tricky task of trying to sew them all together somehow.
Yeah. Yes. So it might be a little bit tricky, but I think the sort of bare bones of the story is already kind of there. It's just the way to sort of tell it with these sketches. Yeah, so the idea is kind of there, but that's the next thing that I want to work on, really.
Sounds big, that, Davey.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
It is quite a big, intimidating project. I don't entirely know how it would work.
I say that's the exciting bit, though, isn't it?
It's
When
quite
it's
exciting as
the
well.
start of it and you're trying to join the dots and then something clicks and you go, oh, God, yes, that should go in there and that should be...
Yeah. And it's something that I've had quite a few moments where I've thought, oh, this is actually really exciting. I'd love to work on this.
Yeah. And if you're pulling other people into the project as well, and you're getting to meet people and you talk to other people,
it's a big collaborative effort. It would take lots of people to do it.
Yeah. And lots of people means lots of social media.
Yeah. Lots of
outlet
work
as well.
I'm starting to go off the idea a little bit, but yeah, it's a big grand project, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to actually do it. But it's good to have a dream, isn't it? It's good to have a
Tune
dream.
in for episode 376 of the Failing Writers podcast to see how Dave gets on.
Dave's got a title.
Dave can talk us through how it all went wrong.
That does sound very exciting, Baird.
Well, it's good to have a dream, isn't it? You know, so I'll keep on. Captain Sensible said.
I think sometimes as well when you have these ideas and then you forget about it for a bit, and then you have the same idea and forget about it for a bit, and it comes up again. You start thinking,
There's
this is a good idea.
Yeah, it must be.
It kind of keeps just nagging at you.
Yeah.
Either that, or someone else has the idea in the meantime, and you go, oh, bollocks!
I bloody thought of that.
Or I'm incapable of thinking up any other ideas, so I just keep having the same one over and over again.
And what I like to do is just tell people about the idea that I had down at the pub and how I had that idea
that's a good thing
first,
to do.
but someone else went and did it. And
I
how
always
annoying
do
is
that. I once went to see Greg's, the bakers, as a client.
Did you go and say, I've had this idea, it's called a sausage roll? You know, I think someone's already done it.
I said, I've no idea why when you send out all your sausage rolls frozen to your bakeries, why on earth have you not found a supermarket to sell them through? And then shortly after, they started selling sausage rolls in frozen sections of supermarkets. So you do the maths.
And what did you get for that, Tommy? What
Nothing.
did you get for that idea?
Nothing.
Nothing. Not even a sausage roll, not even a steak bake.
Nope.
Bloody hell.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Gutted. So, Tommy...
Have you written anything in the last 5 minutes, Tom?
It sounded like you had something exciting to tell us.
Oh, the other day when I was saying...
Yeah,
well,
you said
I've been shying away from actually writing. And so when I've thought, I could do some writing now, I thought, I'll just do some editing. So I've been editing, going through my silly little pastiche sales book. And I was trying to think of ways of getting it out there. And I think I've probably come to the conclusion that I am going to self-publish it and just kind of do that and actually get it out there.
That's a good idea.
Brilliant.
And then I was thinking about ways of marketing it to make it a bit different, to give it something. So it's written by this guy who is an absolute idiot, stuck in the past, complete bigot. So I thought I might actually weave a bit of a story around that I was the ghostwriter.
Right.
The book was unable to be released because he refused to pay me for it because he thought he was so good and he'd written it all.
That's good.
So set up a Twitter account for him and then basically have him saying, oh, I've set on my Twitter, can't publish my book because of this idiot. And then have him die in a freak accident or something. At which point, then legally, I'm able to release the book, but in a very negative way of saying, well, I wrote this guy's an idiot, but
this
I'm
is
gonna
the
put
only
it
way
out
I can
there
get
anyway.
my money back for the work that I've put in.
Yeah, basically, he never paid me, he
Yes,
refused to pay me.
That's good. For a second, I thought you were going to say, and I will step in as a sort of, he can be my alter ego, and you can dress like him, and then start going to do sales conferences around Britain.
Yeah.
Like a sort of...
I mean, that had occurred to
do
me.
him as a character.
Yeah. No.
No.
It's just
yes,
a
but
bit too
no.
much. I might do some tribute acts to him, maybe. Maybe I could come on as your warm-up act for the Edinburgh thing.
Yeah.
Have a little mini sales
I
conference.
like that.
What
yeah,
about
please.
have you ever thought of doing it as an audio book, Tom?
I have actually. I think it would work quite well as an audio book.
Mm.
Yeah, I've actually considered that. I would probably do that alongside self-publishing it, to be honest. But yeah, I think I've probably fallen into the vanity trap of wanting a printed, tangible book just to put on my bookcase, which is pathetic, really, in a way. But,
No, you might as well have both, hadn't you?
why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, totally. There is something lovely about having an actual book, isn't there?
I think, do you know what I think? I was thinking about it psychologically. For me to get anywhere in my writing, I need to do something to put an end to something. Yeah. To finish something.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, I just feel like I've got all these like 5 or 6 different little things, and there's do you know what I mean? There's a bit of a radio player that's half finished, and there's a novel that's ticking along but not really. Do you know what I mean? Get something
out.
Right, this is finished. There's
That's a great idea. Well, look, we've got interviews coming up with some people who have self-published, haven't we? So you could get some valuable hints and tips of how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, the more you look into it, the more horrific it looks, self-publishing.
Yeah.
It's just pitfall after pitfall and painful formatting after painful formatting. But, yeah.
All right.
Still.
There must be apps that do a lot of the formatting for you, presumably.
Well, I think, as we're probably about to learn later on in this episode, I'm sure there's lots of computer AI that can do lots of things for you and slowly take over the world. But I'm worried that they'll just steal my idea. The robots will come round,
don't give them
dispose
too
of me,
much.
and
then
steal
the
all
money
glory.
that they make from it will go towards funding the robot revolution.
Last thing I want to see is me hooked up and trapped by robots watching some robot on Jonathan Ross talking about my book. Yes, Jonathan. Then I wrote this book all by myself without the help of a human. Oh,
yeah, just your brain in a jar
pickled.
sitting above his head.
Me just pickled in a jar watching it. Oh, the pain.
I like to call it my silly little sales book.
Tommy, you should probably tell everybody what it's actually called so that people can look forward to it being published.
The 2-Hour Sales Bible by a sales trainer, sales guru, self-confessed sales legend called Chad Nadworthy. Real name is Charles, but he calls himself Chad.
Of course he does.
Of course he does.
That's cool. Yeah, Charles Bacon Nadworthy. He just offers all his insights from his years and years
Incredible
in the
life.
sales game.
Yeah.
I very much look forward to reading that.
All the tips you need. I just think it's going back through editing it. It is quite funny, and
it is funny.
I just think anyone that's worked with salespeople or a salesperson that's worked with arseholes, it just, there's just some real oh God, yeah. And it's kind of taken to the nth degree, obviously. But I thought by claiming that he's died and admitting he's a bigot kind of shows that it is done in a pastiche way and it's taking the mick out of
it. Very obvious way.
Gives you that
so
rather than, because that was my worry that that people would actually be offended by some of it.
Yeah.
When in fact it is completely ripping the shit out of people that are that stupid.
Yeah. So if people don't like it, then the author's already dead. So it doesn't Doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Does it?
Yeah.
But that does also mean you can't write a sequel.
It does.
So
It
be
does.
careful.
It does.
I suppose you
does.
can bring him back from the dead. I mean, people
Yeah,
do
why
that, don't
not?
they, all the time?
Or
Yeah.
his sister might have one about something else.
Yeah,
Some
once
other
again, we're getting ahead
expertise.
of ourselves here, aren't we? We're skipping to the sequel before you've even formatted the original.
These things are important. You're always thinking ahead.
They're not really, though, are they? When you look at some of the things that came out first and the sequels are a bit different, or they've just ignored the fact that character existed.
Yeah.
And life kind of goes on. No one cares in the
No
grand
one
scheme
cares.
of things.
I think that's a great tip for life, isn't it? Nobody cares.
Once
one
it's-
actually cares.
Once it's done
so
and
just
gone.
get on with it.
So anyway, yeah. So I feel like there's an element of whilst it feels cheating in a way because it's not putting in the hard yards, writing 1,000 words a day or whatever.
Yep.
I've been tinkering away with it, and actually, I think my project for the next 2 or 3 months should be finishing.
Yeah, well done,
finishing
man.
something.
There's the
and
task.
I think there's actually a lot to be said for that.
You know, we were talking about deadlines. Are you going to give yourself a deadline?
Well, I wasn't until you said that. Now I feel like I have to.
I think you should. I think
By
you
the
should.
time John's 50,
Yeah.
Why not? Everything
that
else
should
is.
be the deadline for everything.
Do us a favour, though, Tommy.
Yeah.
Like, get someone professional to design it. I'm not saying that you're not a designer, but you see so many
That's
like
true.
not brilliantly designed books
Yeah,
that
that
are
is
Yeah.
true.
self-published that just look a bit crap.
Because
Yeah.
although
Oh,
you shouldn't,
please.
you can judge a book by its cover if the,
Yeah.
if the
No,
I
cover's
agree with
really,
that.
really
Yeah,
I
bad.
agree with that. The awkward thing for this is that I will want to get it designed nicely and properly.
But it has to also look.
It has to look a little
really
bit
shit.
cheap as well.
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
that's the craft, isn't it?
yeah.
Making
So it
it
has
look
to be
exactly
really well
right.
designed to look a
Yeah.
little bit.
So you
cheap.
know exactly what it should look a little bit 80s.
It needs to look
almost, shouldn't it?
stark on the front, like pretty
You
full on.
You kind of need to find the embodiment of Chad Nadworthy for the photo on the cover. I guess, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Like what does he look like? Think about the physical characteristics of
Speaking about
Chad
artificial
Nadworthy.
intelligence, linking us all back in full circle, I was thinking about that the other day
Yeah.
and looking online at the artificial intelligence creators that just create people that don't exist.
That's right. But they look photographic.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm just
actual
gonna
people.
create.
There's that model. What's the name of that model? Oh gosh, I don't know. But there's someone that's been used on the cover of like Vogue magazines and all these things who doesn't exist. Like one of the world's top supermodels, and she's completely created in AI, isn't she?
Wow.
I think.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this, or am I
It's
making it all
happening.
up?
Yeah, no, it's. I think that's totally right.
There you go. Chad Nadworthy coming at you.
Charles Bacon Nadworthy.
I can't
Oh
wait
God,
for
I've
that.
said that out loud now, haven't I?
You've got to do it now.
This
Yeah.
is
You actually.
this is
have.
the great
One of
thing
the-
and the terrible thing about this stupid podcast.
I'm just looking forward to the day when I can sit on a train up to Edinburgh reading your book, going to see John and Katie's play and thinking, what have I done?
And John's 50 tomorrow.
I've only got a day left. Be like you could write a script around that, Dave. It's like one of these last-minute race against the clock scenarios.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden you've got 24 hours to write, direct, and produce a play or something like that. Grabbing people off the street, like Challenge Annika.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me your life story.
But no, sometimes I do wish we'd gone, shall we start a podcast? And you both went, yeah. What's it about, Tom? And I went, eating really nice food. Do you know, that's what
Yeah.
What's it about, Tom? It's about the different ways you can have a bath and just relax. And that's what we're focusing our energies into, rather than stuff that actually is hard work.
Yeah. It'd probably be just as
Actually
popular
do
as well.
this, yeah.
I would imagine all three of us in a bath together. Combine the two. Us three in a bath, eating fancy food.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
a great idea. Maybe that's our next one.
Yeah, should we just...
I probably wouldn't want to meet any of the people who actually listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
But
If they're willing to sit through a Zoom trailer to see what's on the next week's episode, then for me, that already rules them out. It's John rubbing hummus on his nipples.
three men in a bath.
Dave just carefully scraping it off with a stick of celery before yeah. Anyway,
All right.
I think that's.
Yeah,
I
me
feel
too.
slightly bilious.
Yeah.
We'll call that a section.
Move on.
And
Move on.
join us after the break, guys, when we'll be a little bit more normal, and we'll talk about some of this artificial intelligence.
You're listening to the Failing Writers podcast. Please remember to subscribe, and if it's not too much trouble, leave an overly positive yet still believable review. Thanks.
And we're back.
We should talk about artificial intelligence, shouldn't we? We should have some sort of intelligence on the show. Might as well be artificial.
Yeah. So last week we veered off into the realms of submitting ourselves to our robot overlords and letting AI take the wheel and doing a bit of writing for us.
Yeah.
And we said, well, what we'll do is we'll write a paragraph, whack it in the machine, and then compare and contrast against our own work of continuing the story.
Yes.
We'll see if we can guess which is which.
I'm the Delta 5000 writing machine, manufactured in Korea. Click the big red button here on my screen, and your novel will appear. I'm preloaded with a PhD in your weird human psychology. Don't be scared, I'm not here to take over. I'll just have your house, your kids, your wife, your brain, and maybe your Skoda.
So that's the challenge, isn't it? So we read out the two versions of the story, and then we have to
Yeah.
guess which is real and which is artificial.
Just out of interest, before we read them, do you chaps think it's obvious
No.
from a first read?
No.
Do you not?
I think maybe, but then I don't know. Maybe it's just because I know what I wrote.
Yeah.
So,
I couldn't work it out. I was like, well,
I mean, if I couldn't tell which bit I wrote and which bit the robot wrote of my own, that would be freaky.
I mean, I put mine through the ringer a few times.
yeah, I
and
did.
A couple of just to see what it came up with as much as anything.
The first run was
A
terrible.
couple of them, yeah. They were like the clip
Yeah.
from that film I had last week where it was just like
Yeah.
random connections. And
Yeah.
then this one came up and it was like, what? So, do you want to hear it?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, so
What did we give you? Gave you spy, didn't we?
I was in the
Spy,
spy genre.
That's
So
right.
I wrote a little bit in the biog bit that you can put in to give it a bit
Yep.
more information about how
Yep.
this spy used to be a spy, kind of quit the service. You know, the classic trope of his kind of, you know,
Yeah.
he's out of the spy game, but he's being drawn back into it.
Yeah.
So and I called it Beneath the Mask.
Oh.
Okay.
Nice.
So let me read the bit that I put in first.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The rain hit the sidewalk like the sweat dripping off a constipated donkey. Jack had seen this weather before. He'd seen the taxis jostling through Lower 48th Street. He'd seen the faceless people scampering for cover from the elements. This was just like any other day. Until it wasn't. The Russian stood there, outside his apartment block, waiting for him.
Nice.
So I gave that to the computer.
Yep.
And I also gave it to me.
Yeah.
And then,
At random. Let's hear one.
Right, here we go. Years of being at the top of the spy game meant that Jack knew that there was no point running. They weren't waiting there on a whim. They would have eyes on Jack right now. Pretty good, Dimitri, Jack thought to himself. I didn't spot the trace. Jack slowly, calmly walked up to his apartment building's front entrance, purposefully making eye contact with the Russian all the while. Hello, Dimitri, said Jack. Nice to see you again. I was sure I'd killed you in Berlin.
Right.
That was one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The other one? The umbrella the man held aloft was made of the finest ostrich feathers. Jack had seen all the telltale signs before. The body language, the loosed hip stance, the thin-lipped, pinched expression. It was showtime. Jack knew how to play it cool. The Russian was looking for a reaction, a reason to attack. If he didn't pander to the Russian's desires, then the Russian would charge first. Why are you here, Ivan? Asked Jack.
Ooh. Oh.
Okay, I feel like I know which one it is.
Do you? I thought
The AI
thought
one.
I did, and then no, I don't.
But they're
know.
both shit.
I paid too much attention to the wrong things there. What do you think, John?
Well, I think the second one was AI, it did some things that I think mine came up with, sort of similarly listy,
Yes.
and it just felt
An odd turn of phrase.
slightly odd turns of phrase. I really hope this wasn't.
Yeah, this is tricky now, isn't it?
But there was nothing like ultimately wrong with it, was there? You know what I mean?
He says backtracking.
No, but it's true. It's like it wasn't as easy as I thought it'd be. Let's put it that way.
Are we back in this uncanny valley thing again?
I think so. The ostrich feathers. It was all a bit what? It was an umbrella with what? Ostrich feathers. Yeah, I don't know. Just it wasn't quite right, was it? But
I think I agree with John.
You are right. Yeah.
I did think it would be more obvious, I gotta say.
yeah, it wandered off course. But whereas yours was, it was to the point. It sort of continued with the story in an interesting way. Whereas that was like, I'm going to talk about the ostrich feathers of the whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
And something didn't quite link up at the end. It's like he was looking at him, but then he was talking to him. There was no sort of segue into.
It was the second one that said something about Berlin, wasn't it?
No, that was me, Dave, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I can't remember now.
Yeah, no.
Because that was rubbish.
This is why I can't tell. I can't remember. It's too long since the first one.
Whatever, right?
Interesting. What did we give you, Bed?
So I got romance.
Oh, God.
So a similar thing. So I input the basic
I thought you were
story.
going to say romance is similar to spycraft or something, which just makes you sound like some kind of dirty perv or something.
In some ways.
Sneaking up on people.
Yeah, there's a lot of watching from bushes.
Grabbing them, putting them in a van, going through all the personal details.
Yeah, we have ways of making
Just
you
romance,
talk.
Just
Yeah.
average
Nearly
relationship.
killing them in Berlin.
Romantic.
So it's romance. So the basic story was about a single dad whose kid is on the verge of going off to university. So he's finally about to get his own life back and get back into the world of romance.
I'm just thinking, I hope that this AI isn't so much cleverer than we thought it was, and it's just playing with us, and it's going to put ostrich feathers in each story, and just sit there in its server room chuntering to itself about how much cleverer it is than these stupid humans.
He looked at the ostrich and thought, it's been a while.
I could pluck you and make an umbrella.
So anyway, once again, Tom, I apologise. Mine might be a little bit longer than yours, but
God, why do you always do this?
Let's find out, shall we? Right, not much, but anyway. So here's the initial bit that I wrote. For the first time in a long time, Alan allowed himself a moment to look up at the other parents, almost exclusively mums, to see if they were enjoying the last day of term as much as he was. What he saw was mostly just stress. In a perverted way, it was good to see other parents struggling as much as him, and besides, after today, he'd never have to do the school drop-off ever again. He let out a deep sigh, dropped his shoulders, and put the car into gear. And that's when he saw her. Sarah Hapworth, looking as perfect as she had nearly 20 years ago when she was the one being dropped off. Okay, so that's the opening.
I think that was written by artificial intelligence. It was terrible. There were just some bits that just didn't seem to link. It was just, a human didn't like that.
Didn't
Definitely.
work. There's no ostriches.
Where's the
in
ostrich feathers? It can't be. You're right. I'm so wrong.
there. Okay, right. As Alan drove past her, he couldn't help but smile at the obvious joy he'd inadvertently creased across her face. He fired the car out of the school gates and down the narrow lane at full throttle, so he didn't even notice the desperate gesticulations from one rather irate mum. Halfway down the lane, he marvelled at the fact that it was still warm enough to have the top down and roared along, wondering when that fancy new convertible was going to be ready. After the briefest of moments to notice the rest of the town whizzing by, almost on autopilot, he pulled over to the side of the road and tried to make sense of the sudden rush of memories and emotions running through his mind. For the very first time in a long time, he felt the first stirrings of hope. Not only was this the last day of the school year, but it was also his own graduation day as well. His daughter had told him that morning how well he'd progressed on the reading scale. Whatever had happened to his first child? And now that he had a moment to reflect, he could truly see what had been missing. After all, he was now 46 years old with a good-paying job, and the spare space in the house, once occupied by computers, now taken up by stuff to fill the time until he could finally start to do what he really wanted to do in life. Write. Okay, that's one. And the other one, so he sees Sarah Hapworth looking as perfect as she had nearly 20 years ago.
Okay.
Alan's heart began to race, his palms sticking to the fake leather steering wheel. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're confronted with death, but the same is true when confronted with a glimpse of how your life might have been. Every single time he saw Sarah's face, Alan was instantly transported back to when he was 17, right here at this very school, in this car park. Every one of his hopes and dreams rattling simultaneously through his mind, alongside everything that had happened to stop them coming true. That's why he didn't normally look up. He didn't have time for hopes and dreams, didn't have time to reminisce or indulge in nostalgia. For 17 years he'd focused on one thing and one thing only, Jennifer. But now, sitting in this car that was almost as old as she was, faced with the very real prospect that soon she would be taking care of herself, an endless stream of possibilities were trying to force themselves into his mind. He looked up once more, his head spinning, his eyes rolling in their sockets. Sarah, her own child, now sprinting through the school gates, turned towards him, noticed him, her eyes burning deep into his very soul. She waved and he collapsed to the footwell, closed his eyes and stuck his fingers in his ears. Freedom was going to take a bit more getting used to.
Well,
I think that one's a bit more obvious.
There you go.
Hopefully.
In which, but in which way?
The
is it
first one
obvious?
was AI, wasn't
John.
it? All day long.
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah, it was.
It had that same thing again, didn't it? Where it all seemed like the words next to each other all fitted, but from sentence to sentence, it was just a bit directionless and kind of like...
Yeah, it was odd what it picked up on as well, because I just mentioned, like, he put the car into gear, and it went off on a bit of a thing about a convertible and driving down the road and autopilot.
And leaving that scene and that being an important scene, and then suddenly he's gone from there. That didn't seem right.
Yeah.
It was like, something has to happen now.
Do you know what it lacked? The AI bit. It didn't tap into any of the emotion, did it?
No.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
Really?
no, not really.
It just talked about the physical world more.
It wasn't
than
It wasn't looking for where the conflict was at all. It was just
describing what had happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid
you're right.
computers.
There's no emotional connection to the characters or anything, was it? It was just about...
Yeah.
I think maybe my computer really likes cars or something. I don't know.
When AI starts writing all our stories, what's to stop big corporations either paying or hacking into to twist the narrative to... It's like product placement, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know you just do that naturally, like films do now. They just pop it in there because you know you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what if a book could read your browsing history and start to like write the book?
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
You, yeah.
If you could just submit your browsing history and it would just write something. Yeah. I guess that's Facebook, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
That's true. That's weird though, as well, isn't it? The whole browsing history and what that appears on, and you think those things aren't connected. How's that found out?
Yeah, and I do keep seeing a load of sort of articles that say, don't worry, Facebook doesn't really listen to your conversations and then put adverts in for you. And then the very next day you go, yeah,
it does
bollocks.
exactly that. Yeah,
exactly that.
I sent. I was having an amusing discussion with some friends, with our cycling friends, and we were talking about Lycra, and we were talking about the shape of our arses, and I thought I'll send an amusing picture of those like push-up pants that some ladies wear. So I sent that, and then of course, from then on in, whenever I went on Amazon, there was a huge advert with like really full-on push-up pants with great big like holes in as well to really show the buttocks lifted. And I'm kind of aware that Katie's walking around in the background. And she must wonder about my search history.
Obviously, wondering what she's going to get for a bloody birthday, mate.
Exactly. But you've got to be quite careful, haven't you, what you search for?
Have you?
Yeah, apparently.
Do you? So what? What? Does it stick?
Don't go on Amazon and
No,
search
but
for push-up pants. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah.
If I make sure I use the private browser, just for buying gifts for people.
Oh, that's clever. That's clever.
Because that's what it's for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just have.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I think that's how.
Another top internet safety tip from the guys at the Failing Writers. Brilliant.
So do you want to hear mine?
Yeah. So look, we've got 2 for
Well,
2
yeah, it'd be
there, haven't
interesting
we?
actually, because to see obviously with 2 good writers versus AI, it's pretty easy to spot. So let's see if it works for you.
What topic was
Okay.
yours, John?
Mine, you gave me historical war.
Ah, yes.
Yes, you did,
That's what I
Dave, you
thought.
bastard.
Yeah, thanks. So
This will be interesting. This is interesting. This one though, isn't it? Have you based it on a real
Is it?
war?
I have. I based it on the Second World War because that's the only war that I actually know anything about.
Well, you think AI will have a lot of information,
Well, yeah, exactly.
like facts
Yeah, it can harvest
about the Second World War.
a lot of info about that. So it's basically the story of a boy waking up in a field hospital during the Second World War, injured and with no immediate memory of who he is. That's what I put in. I gave it a little bit more info, but I won't tell you what that is. And my first couple of lines is actually very short.
Well, let's hear it then.
Okay. The boy awoke suddenly. His dream ruptured by a pain down his side. He could hear a woman's voice close by, but couldn't make out what she was saying. Moans and cries beyond, a cacophony of pain. Over it all, a ringing in his ears. And that was all I gave it of the story.
That's not much to go on, is it?
okay.
There's not much to go on. No. So this is the next bit of the story. He opened his eyes and took in the sight of the bare white ceiling. Something about this was wrong. Again, he saw the same face in the ward. This time she looked up and met his gaze. Her hair was fair and her ruddy face was streaked with tears. Her hand fluttered to her mouth, stifling a cry. As he studied her, her eyes widened, knowing somehow what he was seeing. He followed the line of her gaze to the foot of his bed, where a row of dull grey boots lay. He looked down at his body and remembered the uniform. It all came back. The bombed-out barracks, his best stallion, the horde of rifles. They'd caught him, after all. The boy's head dropped, and he froze. He knew now.
Right, okay. And B?
And the second one? Opening his eyes, he saw a nurse leaning over his bed. She spoke again. He still couldn't catch it. Something about a horse. He tried to turn his neck to see what hurt, but had no strength. There were rows and rows of beds filled with wailing, contorted men. A field hospital. He tried to dredge his mind for the last thing he could remember. A flash of light, then nothing. He tried to remember his name. Again, nothing. He reached for his identity tags. Horst Neumann. Then it all rushed back to him like a dream. The panic, being trapped behind enemy lines, hiding, watching his friend Herbert surrender, then the back of his head bursting into a bloom of red cloud. He remembered stripping the dead German soldier lying next to him, putting on his clothes, his tags. He would pretend to be one of them, pretend to be mute. Then the mortar attack from his own side. He looked up, noticed the flag, the swastika, the eagle insignia on the nurse's breast, and realised now why he couldn't make sense of what she was saying to him.
Oh.
There you go. What do you reckon?
I don't know. They both start.
I don't either.
Imagining this, or did they both start with him opening his eyes? Did they both start with the same, pretty much the same? He opened his eyes.
Pretty much exactly the same.
God.
Oh, I was sure, and then I wasn't sure.
I thought it was going to be. I thought the first. Oh no! I thought maybe the first one was AI. Yeah.
I mean, they're both
yes,
excellent.
clearly.
That's the thing. They really. I mean, did you write? Are you tricking us? Did
I
you
don't
write?
think there's anything obvious.
Did you employ a professional author to write both of them? Is that what it is?
Nothing stood out as being like really weird in either of them.
I thought the second one was AI,
But then I don't know.
but then it turned quite good.
I thought the first one was John's, and then the second one started, and I thought it was the AI. But then it started to. I wasn't sure that it was because it.
Oh man!
Oh,
It put what felt like a twist of some
Yeah.
sort in it, like some thought.
I'm gonna stick with my original, and I'm gonna say the first one was John's. Tom?
Okay.
I'm gonna wait to see what John says.
No.
No.
That was
you
my
answer.
gut instinct as well. So yeah.
It's totally the other way
No
around.
way.
So the second one was mine.
You see,
The first one was.
I half thought that because I didn't
Computer.
think it'd be capable of doing a decent end, that was a narrative twist on it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than just saying what was going on.
Wow.
Well, that was good.
I'm quite shocked at that. I really am.
It did. It was. I mean, it was like the fourth or fifth
Right.
try because they were so bad.
Yes,
they were
I
so
had
obvious.
Okay.
And it was, I think it was the fifth go.
So you kept
and it came up
teaching
with
it.
that, and I
You've
thought,
been
actually,
teaching
that-
your AI too much, John.
Yeah. And interestingly, I thought I'll try and tell a very concise little story with a sort of little twist at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously the AI wasn't trying to do that. It was just sort of, it seemed to be just inferring things. It was like her eyes widened, knowing somehow what he was seeing.
Like it was setting up for the story
Yeah,
in
exactly.
2
Yeah.
chapters' time.
Yeah.
But would it, if you let it do the whole thing, would it actually resolve
Yeah,
anything?
Probably
Or
not.
was it
That's
just
the
keep
point, yeah.
setting stuff up? It's just a big
Yeah.
tease.
But it
It
looked
must-
like, exactly. It was like it was dropping these little nuggets
Well, yeah,
for you
that
to
was
try
fascinating,
and
that
work out.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I thought you might. I thought the thing, the beginning, I thought might put you off is because I decided that he would be, he'd be British, but then he'd wake up in this German hospital because he put this German uniform on, and I thought I'd have the nurse. I thought I'd have him thinking that the nurse was saying something about a horse, but she was actually saying his name, Horst Neumann.
Horst.
But I thought that's such a weird line to have in there. I thought that might make you think.
That did half made me
I thought that might trigger like they'll think that's AI. And I thought, that's good, actually. I'll leave that in because that might trick you a
Yeah.
little bit.
No, it did.
But, yeah.
It did. It did.
I
It
think
did.
that's true because I did think that because the AI seems to have a habit of like putting names in. So
yeah.
I thought that
Yeah.
that's why it did that because oh God, I don't know now. I don't know what to think. Is that really you? Is we actually speaking to John or are we speaking to a computer right now?
John, I don't know what you did, but the kids have been raving about last night's bedtime story.
Oh, really?
Yeah? Did you try something new?
No. Just the same little old me.
Actually, you do seem a bit different somehow.
I brushed my hair.
That's it. Yeah, I thought so. Anyway, my turn to cook. What do you want for tea?
Oil.
What?
Lives. Oil lives. Salad.
Oh, okay. No problem. Be ready soon.
Phew. That was a close one. Shut up, John, or I will hit you with this ostrich feather umbrella.
Bloody hell! Wow, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
I think we've just had a genuinely interesting feature. What is going on? And it's only taken.
And
it's only
we've had a
taken-
generally interesting feature, but we've had to outsource it to computers to actually do it. Left to our own devices, not so good.
Nothing at all.
Supercomputer, yay!
Yeah. I think more and more writers are actually using it as a device, like a sort of a
It'd
collaborator.
be brilliant. I mean, in that sense, if you were writing something and you couldn't think of what to put next,
Yeah.
and you could just click that, you'd either go, "That's really good," or you'd go, "Well, that's rubbish. I wouldn't write that," and then be inspired to write what you would write instead.
But that's what you're meant to do as a writer,
Yeah.
though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Just put
Just
anything.
Trot out
Yeah,
some
yeah.
absolute
Yeah.
garbage, and then you've got a framework to go and change
Yeah.
it. But that just cuts out the
You've
middleman.
got someone else to do
You
that
just-
for you.
Yeah,
I feel like I lost that competition.
yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair comment.
Yeah, I mean, and,
Or maybe the computer.
No, I think
won.
yeah.
maybe yes, the robots won't feel bad, John, because robots are quite clever, aren't they?
But there was a definite
I
edge
guess.
of losing. It did lose the humanity in it, didn't
Yeah.
it? That's where it failed.
Are we talking about me now or the robot?
Yeah, it just seemed to spout out words that just kind of move things along anywhere.
Which we will refer to from now on as ostrich feathers. It's a little bit ostrich feathers, that.
Yeah, where did he get that from?
Ostrich feathery.
Who makes... I mean, are ostrich feathers good for making umbrellas out of? I guess they'd be...
Not for the ostrich.
Ostriches must be water resistant, mustn't they?
Yeah, I suppose
It doesn't seem like the best material to make an umbrella out of, but...
You have to really want an ostrich feather umbrella.
Yeah, because they are quite fast.
Exactly, just catching them would be a struggle.
Yeah.
If you can run that fast, just find some cover.
You could, yeah, you're right.
I mean...
yeah.
Hello, I'm George Clooney, and whenever I've got a spare moment, I like to listen to the Failing Writers podcast. It's great.
Well, we've learned a lot today about... we mostly learned a lot about John.
And his lack of talent.
No, you're as talented as a massive supercomputer.
That's a better way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is pretty good, actually.
You could probably beat us both at chess at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is going on my CV.
Do you know what I've got on my CV? Once Brian Blessed...
Oh, Brian Blessed!
said I was a better director than George Lucas.
That is good.
There we go.
Fact. Absolute fact.
You're a better director than George Lucas!
He said. And I said, thanks, Brian. Much appreciated.
And did you actually get a recording of
No,
it?
no, I didn't. I don't
That would be
think.
quite cool.
Do you mean some kind of proof from my cock and bull story?
Yeah,
no,
otherwise.
put it on my proof.
Spurious story.
Anyway, no, apart from that, we've learned a little bit about AI, and that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yep.
It was interesting. Worryingly interesting.
We've also learnt that we have actually finally started getting on with things, haven't we? You two have both imposed deadlines upon yourself.
I did. Well, no, I had a deadline imposed on me through.
That's true. We imposed that. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the same thing. It is the same thing.
I'm
isn't
hoping John never reaches his 50th birthday, because then technically,
that could be arranged.
Gosh.
The irony would be in that I sneak to John's house and poison him so he can't reach his 50th birthday, but then write a novel with that as the main plot in it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And that is actually my...
And then impose a deadline of my 50th birthday to release that.
Oh, it's like a concept. Yeah, that'd be a good theme, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, just delaying it slightly every time.
Series of books, just where,
But I think the self-publishing thing sounds like a great idea, Tom, and it's probably lucky, therefore, that next week we have an interview with a very successful author who started off in the world of self-publishing. Yeah, so we can learn from Owen Ryan, otherwise known as OMJ Ryan, who's going to be talking to us next week.
Yeah, about crime thrillers.
Yeah. So that's all very exciting, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Definitely an episode not to miss. So do subscribe right now.
Yes.
And don't miss it.
Hit the little subscribe button if you haven't already.
That was a pretty powerful plug for ourselves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Our listenership's going to go through the roof
Absolutely.
after that, isn't it?
I mean,
You
in a
couldn't
way...
not subscribe now after that, I think.
There'll be people who have already subscribed who are intentionally unsubscribing just so they can resubscribe.
That's true. We shouldn't have said hit the subscribe button. We should have been more specific about that, shouldn't we? Hit the subscribe button only if you haven't previously subscribed.
Or unless, if you listen to this while driving, do wait until you finish driving.
Yeah.
Oh, nice, Tommy.
Yeah,
safety
absolutely,
first.
Absolutely. Or some people listen to podcasts while they're going to sleep. So we need to say, wake up and subscribe now!
Subscribe!
Oh, couldn't we?
Wakey! That should do it, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, until next week, peoples.
If a robot ever says, who is the better writer, you or me? Just say,
You are a robot.
You, definitely you.
And in my case, that's true. Apparently. Well, I'm going to go off and cry. See you later, chaps.
See ya.
Bye!
Hello.
Where's everybody gone?